Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the audience for coming to the visiting lecture event today. I would like to say welcome to our visiting lecture today, Miss Dulguun Altangerel from Mandakh University in Mongolia. Maybe we can start for this event today for Miss Dulguun.
Hello. Hello. Are you listening to me? Hello. Hello. Do you hear me? Hello. Hello. Are you listening to me? It's not in this meeting. What's going on?
Hello.
Hello. Are you listening to me? Is my audio is okay?
Okay, Miss.
Yes.
We can start for this class today. Thank you.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Altangerel. I'm lecturer of the Mandakh University. So, I teach financial risks and investment and fundamental of the finances. Today, I'm gonna talk about, is my, this slide is going okay? Are you seeing my desktop? Guys, are you listening to me? Yes, okay. Okay. Now, let's start with our lecture. Have you ever heard about ECA, which stands for Export Credit Agency? Okay, you guys can freely talk with me, so don't worry. I'm not going to judge you guys. So I am just hope for that you guys must be from the economic students, so you guys maybe have a listener about what is export credit agency, because in Indonesia there is a export credit agency called Asia Asuransi. Am I calling right? Okay. Okay, I think that maybe you guys didn't heard about export credit agency. So today our main topic about this lecture will be export credit agency. Export credit agency is not common in all over the countries because it is a kind of the special missioned government agency. It has established all over the places, but with some other different ideas. But when it had established or when it appeared as export credit agency, it has just come toward to solve this kind of problems. When it has appeared in history, export credit agency was to facilitate political and commercial risks that the private sectors cannot accept. So, and first export credit agency has actually established in the United Kingdom in 1990s to facilitate political and commercial risks of Russia, because at the time Russia has a transition from the monarch to socialist country. So that's why there was a lot of political risks that no one willing to trade to Russia. But they, as a government, United Kingdom needs to be accelerate their trade, foreign trade. So that's why to encourage the trade between United Kingdom and Russia, they have established export credit guarantee department. So still this department called it as export credit guarantee department. So after this successful facilitation, many countries actually attracted to export credit agencies, especially after World War II. A lot of countries wanted to rebuild their economy and reconstruct their economy. So they are choosing the export credit agencies. And at the time, the political and commercial risks were their problem. And nowadays it has shifted to different level, because after 1990s, it has become more different. And when it first introduced it is a government department to facilitate political risks. But now the situation is different. So there is some private companies are organizing and export credit agencies. And as well as there is a virtual export credit agencies are operating in the world. So meaning that export credit agency was initial proposed was to facilitate political risks and commercial risks that private industry cannot accept. No one willing to accept this kind of risk to trade. And then now from the 1990s, it becomes different level, because it is becoming more like not only facilitate political and commercial risks, it also have to be a part of the community, because nowadays it is a technological things has advanced. And also advanced countries are focusing on a different levels. So that's why export credit agency is becoming more involved in the presence of the export credit private industries. So now we have learned that what is the export credit agency. So we can just sum up with the export credit agency essentially just provides government-backed loans, guarantees, insurance to the private corporates to compete global markets. Export credit agencies are usually helpful for the small and medium companies to compete in global market, because nowadays global market becoming more and more complex and competitive. So without the export credit agency, it could be harder, because some of countries have export credit agency to subsidize and giving them lower rate loans and guarantees, insurance, while some others are competing without these advantages. So export credit agency is actually a lot of help to exporting companies. Now export credit agencies are becoming just some of this must be things, but it has a lot of it's meaningful on itself. Now, okay, now let's go. So as I have mentioned it earlier, the export credit agencies' initial proposal was to facilitate political risks and commercial risks. In order to fulfill this responsibility, they are using two techniques. First, supplier credit, and second, buyer credit. Supplier credit essentially meaning that the export credit agency only works with the exporter. So from this picture, we have see this graph here. Okay, here. So exporter and importer are giving each other the export sending goods and service to importer. Importer needs to be send money to exporter. But here there is a very big lag because of their interest. For example, exporter wants their payment as soon as they send goods and services to importer. But importer wants to pay when at least goods and services arrive at their country and their property. So there is a very huge lag. So means that there is a 90 to 100 days lags between those interests. So in order to facilitate these lags, export credit agency is issue the insurance and guarantees or the loans to fill this gap. Just essentially when we are talking about. So from this picture, we have seen that export credit agency is just giving issue the insurance to export company, and the exporter company gives to export credit agency premium. The export credit agency isn't involved any kind of commitment to the country B or country B's importer or any kind of banks. So we can see that export credit agency is the only guarantees exporter from the importer risks. And second one is a buyer credit. It's another level. So from what we have seen here, it is a more easier graphs we have seen, but here there is not a very big complex stuff, because when buyer credit, the export credit agency have to be involved the importer company or importer company's bank. So from here, exporters sends their goods and service, and then they need to do the supply contract to each other, and then importer needs to get some loans from the bank. When it comes to loan, export needs to be contact with the export credit agency, and then export credit agency gives a pro-accumulation of the risk facility, and export credit once the version of the risk completion of facility, export credit agency gives insurance to the bank A of the export credit agency. After that, a bank A or bank B of the importer work together loan agreements to pay their money. So buyer credit strategy, there is a more involvement, more process and export credit in an export credit agency working. So when we are talking about what is the export credit and supplier credit, we have to talk about the business model of the export credit agency. As mentioned earlier, export credit agency have now shifting from the traditional business model of the just government-backed model, have now changing, very fastly changing because of the situation of this 21st century. For example, now there are 5 business model of the export credit agency. First, private company acting as an agent. Now let's see that what is the private company acting as an agent. For example, the government usually, in a traditional way, government usually plays as a agent to facilitate political and commercial risks. But now here, private companies actually working as the agent between government and the exporter, but with the policy written by the government. And these kind of export-credit agencies are now existing. COFESA, France, Netherlands, Astrodius, and Germany's Euler Hermes. So when we are seeing that France and Netherlands and Germany, it is a we can see one similar thing, because they are European countries, and they are very developed and industrialized countries. The most of the industrialized developed countries, such as Italy, France, Netherlands, Germany, United Kingdom, they were the definiers of the export-credit agency. They established first business types of the export-credit agencies. So they know what is the export-credit agency, what is their role, what can be done with the export-credit agencies. Now they are shifting from the brick and mortar way to the different level, to involve private company, to also giving an opportunity to private company to develop their own potential and finances. And in my opinion, actually, the France and the Netherlands, Germany, or Italy, those are the European Union member states countries, and they are also the leading countries of the United Union. So they have very well adopted law. So that's why maybe it could be possible for the France, Netherlands, and Germany with this private company acting as an agent business model. But when we are talking with the developing countries such as Mongolia or Bangladesh or some other countries, it could be hard. Okay, we can talk about it later. Now let's move on to the next model. Government department facility. We have said, most traditional way of doing export-credit agency is government department or facility. It is meaning that separate department or government operating under the authority of the government, minister, or secretary. For example, this kind of export-credit agencies exist in the United Kingdom and Switzerland. We have mentioned about 1919, the first export-credit agency established in the United Kingdom as Export-Credit Guarantee Department. Now we have seen that still these departments are acting their initial proposal to facilitate political and commercial risks. State-owned agency. So next model is a state-owned agency is working as export-credit agencies. So in this case, the governments can be organized as the agency, and also this agency can be a regional agencies. These kind of export-credit agencies have Canada, US, United States, Turkey, Japan. But for example, I have actually graduated from the Italian university, so I know about the Italian export-credit agency model very well. So I wanted to give an example of the export-credit agency of the Italy. When I was studying this at the time, I learned that the export-credit agency actually existed, because in Mongolia we don't have an export-credit agency. In the Italian export-credit agency is a kind of organized the state-owned agency, and these agencies have their own regional agencies. In Italy, actually 5 independent autonomical regional or the municipality. So these 5 municipalities have their own agency, but those agencies have to be work with the state-owned main agency. meaning that if we are living in a one municipality, we could have another agency, then neighboring agency, even we are living in a one country. So this kind of agencies actually, in my opinion, becoming a very, very touching and doing their responsibility very well, because these kind of state-owned agencies are using very flexible level, and they reach any level of the small or medium enterprises, or even with the very bigger corporations. And now we have a very interesting business model of the expert-curated agency, which is a virtual expert-curated agency. This kind of expert-curated agency only exists in New Zealand right now. But in a virtual expert-curated agency, government is only involved with risk-taking and decision-making. Means that they are just issuing some loans or guarantees. They are not giving any supports to the small and medium enterprises. They are just giving virtual advice. They don't give any advice. They are just issuing all some finances. That's it. In my opinion, this kind of export finances, it is really hard to get one, because some developing countries, the small and medium enterprises are really hard to adjust their social. For example, some countries or some small and medium enterprises don't know how to finance their business. They don't even basic stuff. So just getting a loan and financing is not enough for me. And last or least, the business model of the export-curated agency is the government provider of the reinsurance. Means that they don't do a business directly, but it will provide reinsurance to insurers. Means that when private insurers are insuring the exporters, the government are insuring those kind of private insurances. This kind of export-curated agencies exist in the United Kingdom and Australia. So we have seen a lot of business types of business export-curated agency, with each have their own specialty and they have their own color and tastes. But we are not talking about the best practices of the business model of the export-curated agency. Export-curated agency can be established with any type of business model. So there is a not exact form of the business model of export-curated agency must be established in this way. Maybe because of this reason is that export-curated agency have to adopt their social and economy. So that's why they have to be sometimes they have to act as a state-owned agency, sometimes they have to be a private company acting, sometimes they can act as a virtual export-curated agencies. So within given situation, given economy, given social life, export-curated agency model can be established. So now we can go to the next part. So we have talking about export-curated agency is helping to facilitate political and commercial risks, and it is a really essential to exporters and exporting companies or the governments who wanted to just aggregate or fasten their export. But sometimes when we are talking about export-curated agency or some things, we have to see the two sides, advantages and disadvantages. What kind of expropriated agency can be done to our society? When we are talking about expropriated agency, many scholars could help talk about its advantages of to the government, the countries, and economy. But there is a still side effect of the expropriated agency existing in countries or the world. Expropriated agency has proven a lot of dark sides to the society of the world. And when we are talking about what kind of trees can be done by expropriated agency, we have to talk about sustainability of the developing. So when we are talking about how can expropriated agency can be play roles in the development, but expropriated agency can be very hard for some developing countries. First, criticism toward expropriated agency is that it can be a very big threat to the sustainability of the developing countries' public debt. Some of really big economists has actually criticized expropriated agency. Are they doing job? But this job is giving more opportunity, more wealth to the developing countries, while developing countries' public debt is increasing. For example, when we are talking about the accelerated public debt, we have to talk about South African Exxon power plant. Exxon power plant actually is a African biggest power supplier of the South Africa. But when they wanted to widen their business, they wanted to build new planet, and they have lent $2.1 billion from the various expropriated agencies. For example, COFESA, China Development Bank, and also Exim Bank of United States. And after this, even with the $2.1 billion, they cannot finish their planet. So they are asking again their government to take a loan to finish this project. And South African government actually then get a public debt from the China. And after this incident, the Moody's have downgrade the South African credit rate. So means that developing countries has accumulated a lot of public debt, while the developed countries such as France, United States, they are accumulating wealth. So there is really hard for the developing countries to survive this kind of situation. Another criticism is an environmental issue. In a developed or industrialized countries, people or citizens are very, very conscious about environmental issues. For example, when I was studying in Italy, they teach us about environmental protection class, each single person in a university. So we have learned about environmental protection. How can environmental protection can be treated to our lives? What is the sustainable development? They are giving this kind of knowledge to their own children from the young age to adult person. So they are very conscious about environmental issues. But in the developing countries, we don't much talk about what is environmental issues. And from the other side, the most advanced countries are actually just judging their government. Stop doing this to our environments. We don't live this kind of environment, or you are just ruining this kind of protection or something like this. So the advanced countries or developed countries have to protect their own lands environment very well, but they are threatening to the developing countries environment, which is a very sad, because have you ever heard about Palawan Island? Palawan Island? Okay, guys, I really, really appreciate if you guys say something, because I feel very weird when I talk in the law. Is my voice is still heard? Okay, now let's continue our lecture. In Palawan Island of Philippines, there is a nickel producing planet exists. From the 1980s, Japanese company is using this nickel producing planet for these for the environmental issues of their in Japan. They are just using Philippines, the remote part of the island, to process nickels, and which needed to a very toxic elements which call it sulfate. Okay, I have to look it because I don't remember where it. Nickel cobalt sulfate. This sulfate is a very, very toxic to the biodiversity and human health. If it leaks to the environment, it can cause any types of the cancer. And also it can be destroy even species of these environments. And for 20 years, Japanese company called Coral Bay actually working this place, which is backed by the Japanese export credit agency for a lot of years. And then these kind of projects are just really treating to environment. And after the incident of the 2014, sulfate has leaked to the river of the Philippines area called, I don't remember, but anyhow, the sulfate has leaked to the river. And then a lot of species of the fish has destroyed. People cannot drink this water, and it is a really, really hard to people to live there. So they are just addicted, moving from their homes to different places. So environmental issues are really, really concerning for the developing countries. When we are seeing this is a very bad example. Okay, now next criticism is a human right. Again, United Nations or status human right is has be equal to any people. But when we are talking about the human right, we cannot compare with the European Union citizens compared to like very small countries. There is a not equal human right exists. For example, when I study in Italy again, they are respects a lot of human rights stuff, and they even teach me about every kind of financial profits. Human right must be tough, but here in Mongolia, no, human right doesn't exist. Financial profitability is top of the everything here. So when we are talking about all citizens' human rights equal, but in a reality, in practical world, it does not exist. For example, Italian executive agency named Simist has actually backed Green Dot, named the company to build a Guatemala to hydroelectrical planet. But this case was really hard because when this much problem for this project was the project needed to be built in a municipality or a city. So these projects are taking land from the people's house, or they are taking places of the cities to move on. So meaning that this is a threatening to human right to live there, and they wanted to reside their own home, but they are waiting with the Italian company named Green Dot, just for the hydrogel new flower plant. It's not fair. And corruption. It's very sad that well, maybe I don't know about the Indonesian situation, but in the Mongolia, corruption is a very hard situation for all of us. And corruption is a worst case for any kind of people, in my opinion. Even Canada. Canada is a very developed country, and we believe that Canada is a much more better society than us. But in reality, it is not, because 2019 there was a very big corruption scandal in the United Kingdom, and not Canada. What was it? It was the okay, again I don't remember the name. CNS Lavalin, the world's biggest construction company, is taking loans from the Canadian executive agency for 20 years. For 20 years, the Canadian government backed CNS Lavalin. But 2019, SNS Lavalin has caught in a corruption scandal when they are doing projects, and they are paying a lot of bribery to the developing countries' governments, meaning that is every single within 20 years, every single project they have done have acquired them by the bribery money, with the bribing these projects with the developing countries. So meaning that export-credit agency can be increase corruption, and it can be a worsening corruption situation. So it is really hard to assess this kind of stuff. Now we have learned about export-credit agency is not angel to all level. Export-credit agency can be do a lot of bad things, backsides. It has a lot of bad sides. Now, how can these bad effects or bad sides can be facilitated? We have to talk about international regulation. Export-credit agency is not kind of the agency every single country has, but with the export-credit agency, the companies can be, it will be easier for to compete in the global market. So in order to this competition more powerful or more fair, the export, there is international regulations have existed. For example, but not every export-credit agency have to be, they follow those regulations. But Organization for Economic Cooperation Development, or OECD, has issued this arrangement on the officially supported export-credit, means that any member country of the OECD have to accept this arrangement to fair global competition of any member countries. So this arrangement was intended to prevent trade distortion and minimize export subsidies. Means that every countries have to be really need to be a play fair. So the arrangement contains a comprehensive set of the guidelines governing the most favorable financial terms, conditions, expectations may offer maximum repayment terms of the risk basic minimum premium rate. This means that the arrangement contains guidelines to government need to be set the most favorable conditions. Maybe it can be like Italian countries cannot give their companies 0.1% of loans, or like this kind of constructions they are giving to the member states export-credit agencies. A European Union regulation of the export-credit agency. As I mentioned, the European Union are very, very conscious about environmental stuff and regulation or any type of the law. They are adopting the arrangement for facility of the export-credit agency of the OECD. So European Union states that any member of European Union member states have to adopt the arrangement on the officially supported export-credit by the OECD must be complied with this arrangement. In the European Union, there are total 29 different export-credit agencies and the government departments have export-credit agency. So, which means that this level of 29 countries agencies have to be comply anything which is mentioned on the OECD arrangement on officially supported export-credit agency. So now we have seen that the biggest supports from the export supporters of the export credit to in the European Union, which is first of all, of course, Germany, France, Sweden, Italy, Netherlands. They are the top five export supporters, or these 5 export credit agencies are biggest in export in the European Union. When we have to talk about Berner Union. So we see that Indonesian export credit agency is a member of the Berner Union. Have you ever heard about what is the Berner Union? Okay. According to World Trade Organization statistics, 13% of the world's annual cross-border trades in goods and services are provided by Berner Union member states. In the Berner Union, there are 84 members or the export credit agencies are members in this Berner Union. Berner Union has established in 1930 by France, Italy, Spain, and United Kingdom. And first their meeting was held in Bern, Switzerland. So that's why it called it a Berner Union. Berner Unions are the most biggest purpose is to work for the international acceptance of sound principle of export credit agency establishment, to work for maintenance of the sound principle of foreign investment insurance, to provide for exchange of information, assistance, expertise, to promote and present export credit cross-border investment insurance industry. Means that Berner Union is not to give in or facilitate any kind of regulation. They are just working to give a principle or guidelines to its own member states to give some limits. As we have mentioned at OECD's arrangement, they are giving the Berner members, Berner member export credit agencies to what is this. And they are giving Berner Union has a bigger full to the export credit agency. They can be networking to each other to exchange information, to learn from each other, and giving any advice from the related anything regarding export credit agency. So Berner Union is the biggest union of the export credit agency. Okay, we have very short time has left, so we have to talk a lot very fast. Now let's talk about what is the role of the export credit agencies in the low and middle income countries. Have you ever heard about BRIC or Next 11? Is it possible for someone chat or something? Okay, whatever. Okay, BRIC stands for the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. These 4 countries are considered as these countries' economy is a potential to reach most advanced economy by 2050. And next 11 countries, Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, South Korea, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, Turkey, Vietnam. So these 11 countries can be next BRIC country. So means that these countries' economic growth are really, really high, and they have potential to reach advanced level economy. Now we have to talk about low and middle income countries. We send up next 11 member of the South Korea. South Korea has two export credit agency called Cashier Korea Exim Bank. Korea Exim Bank established in 1963, and Cashier has established much more late, let's say 2000. Which means that Cashier and Korea Exim Bank is really working tightly. Cashier is only the focuses on the export insurance, while Korea Exim Bank is the focuses on the guarantees and the loans. We've seen there's a graphic of the share of GDP of the South Korea of exports and imports. In 1960s, only around 12% of their GDP has been consists of the exports. Now let's say around 2010, it reached 60% of their GDP are dependent on the exports. South Korea's Exim Bank and the export level of the GDP is a very highly correlated. And South Korean, those two export credit agencies actually backed by their own country and government. Means that the government still supports any company who wanted to export or compete in a global level. They are supporting to their companies. Maybe the government in 1960s, there was a very hard time for South Korea because there was a very huge economic depression. So they wanted to compete with the global market, but there's a very high amount of poverty. They wanted to learn. So actually, South Korea is a kind of country usually adopts the Japanese government best practices. So South Korea wanted to export, industrialize their economy. So they are really, really supporting this kind of industrial company. So thanks to this effort, it has paid, because now South Korea is well known to the country that its technological exports. We are using now South Korean manufactured television and cell phones. We are even listening their music. We are even eating their food. For example, Korean Exim Bank even issued the loan to K-pop industry to, of course, compete with the global market. So now we see that Korean pop culture is very huge in the world, and they are getting a lot of money from us. Korea Exim Bank has supported in early 2000 to until today to given a government-backed loans to this kind of K-pop industrial companies. That's why it can be a very useful for the K-pop or K-drama or some related stuffs getting famous. China Export Credit Agency. As a similar with the South Korean Export Credit Agency, they have two export credit agency. The Export-Import Bank of China, Sinasur. Sinasur is a actually a very huge player in the Asian market. In Asian continent, there are 18 export credit agencies operating today. But Chinese export credit agencies are a biggest player in Asia. For example, Shinasure, when we are seeing that Shinasure and they exporting goods services of the China, there's a highly related to Shinasure and the Chinese exports. Early 2000, there was only like 1.2 trillion dollars exports have been calculated by the authorities. Now, like 2014, according to 2014, this amount has reached to 2.1 billion. So Shinasure, with the Shinasure and Export Credit Import Bank of China, their absolute amount of the export has reached almost 75%. So it means that the Shinasure Export Credit Bank of the China are responsible for this big movement. But nowadays, of course, China has been shifting their focuses from export to different level. Maybe you guys have heard about that. Now, China has been giving a lot of debt, giving loans. For example, China are giving some developed countries a lot of public debt, including Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, or some other Asian countries. With this loan to public, it is a very giving advantage to China, because China has 1 billion people, but their country is limited. Now their environmental issues has reached the emergency level. So they wanted to use another country's renewable energies or any environmental stuffs. So they are giving a lot of public loans to maybe next movement to those countries, in my opinion. So personally, in my opinion, export credit agency or the Chinese governments are going a deeper movement to advanced countries. Export Credit Guarantee Corporation is an Indian export credit agency. We see that the India and China is a BRIC country. So it means that their economy could be reach most potentially reach the advanced level by 2050. Export credit guarantee corporations issue new business issues compared to export credit goods and services are relatively small, because with the respect of the Indian real GDP is depending not only exports. They usually see their GDPs are seen another level. Their tourism, their other stuff are plays biggest role in their GDP. Now we can talk about the reasons not to establish export credit agency. The first of the reasons of the established export credit agency is protection against risks. As we earlier mentioned, that political risks and commercial risks are really hard to handle. The private insurance or private industry businesses. So that's why providing the government-backed guarantee loan and insurance can be very helpful to the small and medium enterprises to compete in a global market. Second, access to bank finance. In the developing countries, of course, again, developing countries, it is really hard to get a loan, and also banks they're very small, relatively small. They don't have a lot of diverse products. For example, in Mongolia, we don't have many different type of products. So with the export credit agency, with this can be the finance, the banks, and banks can be produce more products. We can be access the banks. A lot of can be things can be done with the banking industry. And third was the access to information. The information is very crucial to any business as a competing in a complex world. So with the export credit agency, most practically state-owned agencies gives a lot of important information to they export a lot of things. For example, some of the small medium enterprises don't know much about their importer laws and guidelines or tax systems. They don't even know their languages, and they don't even have human resources. So with the export credit state-owned agency, information can be easier and can be very helpful to compete. Access to training can be similar to access to information. Fifth is an instrument of the government policy. Export credit agency can be a very helpful tool to facilitate government policies. And sixth is international competition and cooperation. With the international competition of the two or a lot of countries, there will be more and more intense competition, gives a more highly productivity results. So establishing export credit agencies have these 6 reasons or advantages to the countries who establish an export credit agency. And there are some reasons not to establish export credit agencies. First of all, export credit agencies have encouraging credit risks, bad credit risks. With the subsidized money, with the very, very favorable condition, they don't even want to get the real finances. They just wanted to ask a lot of governments. For example, in Mongolia, okay. For example, in Mongolia, Mongolian small and medium enterprises just are asking a lot of stuff, or they are even insisting them. Okay, let's say last few months, our small and medium enterprises just are blaming our governments for their own bad credit risks, insisting that our government how to explain what is the risks, how you can elevate these kind of risks, the kind of stuff. So means that they are spoiling their companies. Second, export credit agencies can be status of symbol. Again, export credit agency have to be a really active player in a competition. If it's not active, they would rather become just status. Could be just a waste of money. Second, third, substituting for the foreign aid. Foreign aid is actually very helpful for the development. Maybe people say that foreign aid is not that useful for development in a developing countries, but it is a very helpful because with the foreign aid, we could avoid public debts. Small amounts of debts are fine, but it's real hard. Fourth, starting credit war. So with the export credit agencies, some of the global export credit agencies are like France or the Chinese export credit agencies are doing war with their credit interest level. So which countries export credit agencies given a lower interest rate means that they are giving more advantages to their home exporter. So means that it is a really unpleasant with this one. Fifth is the subsidizing working capital. Actually, some scholars say that export credit agencies doesn't need to be give exporters to pre-producing level. Means that once the product and goods are prepared, they can be given any guarantees loans to the countries corporations. If we are giving this kind of stuff, which means that export credit agencies are competing with their own private banking industry, means that this is not, of course, pleasant. If they are taking a very favorable condition of loans, why they need to go to the private banks? Why they need to private banks loans? So, which is a really hard situation. Sixth, propping up inefficient domestic companies. Yeah, it is a very similar to the first one because domestic companies, when they are wanted to get their finance, they get their government. They don't want to like compete with the others. They don't need to be worried about what the other domestic companies are doing. They are just destroying the domestic companies' competitiveness. Seventh, introducing government as a guarantor of the exporters and banks means that it could be a habit for the exporters and banks that, oh, we have a government, so we don't need to be worried. We just have to rely on our government. Or as I have mentioned earlier, they are just blaming or insisting unreasonable stuff from their governments. So that's why establishing export credit agencies can be spoil the whole level of the system, economic system of the country. Now we have only 9 minutes left, but I have to talk this part. Can export credit agencies be beneficial to Mongolian economy? Well, there's 4 reasons that they can be beneficial to Mongolian economy. First of all, it can be instrument of the government policy because Mongolian trade policy is now diversify the export products. We see there is shares of the exports products here. So we just export raw materials. Only 23% of other stuffs we are selling to the other countries, means that we are dependent from only one industry. Okay, depending on one industry is a really, really bad thing. Okay, do we have? Okay, sorry. Due to this due to this raw material dependency, we have faced two financial crises. It was really hard to overcome these dependencies. So for overcome these dependencies, Mongolia has declared that Mongolian trade policies, we have to diversify the export products. And even they have established a development bank to support exporting companies other than raw materials. So, however, it wasn't that successful. Now we see that what was the export product other than raw materials share in export percentage? Yeah, we see that intermediary goods are getting increased, but not consumer goods and capital goods are not increased much. Because intermediary goods are the Mongolian, some Kashmir stuffs and textile industries are getting more introduced in the world than any other stuffs. But in here, Mongolia, we have a lot of resources of the meat or some vegetable stuffs. We have some food. We can export this kind of stuffs, but still we didn't use this opportunity to introduce us with this stuff. Okay, now let's take a look from the Mongolian trade policies. Who have into 1921, Mongolia has become independent from the China. After independence, we have established Ministry of Finance, and this Minister of Finance has been responsible for the Mongolian foreign trade policy. And then 1930 to 1932, Ministry of Commerce and Trade and Industry has established, and it was responsible for Mongolian foreign trade. And then 1931 to 1940, the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Transfer were they responsible for Mongolian foreign trade. 1940 to 1960, Ministry of Trade and Commerce were responsible for the Mongolian foreign trade. So we see that Mongolian political policy is a really unstable. Here we see that within only 4 decades, there were 4 different ministers. Only 4 different ministers are responsible for Mongolian foreign trade, means that, which is a really unstable. But when we have talked about South Korea, South Korean Exim Bank has established in 1963, and they are doing excels in their market. But in Mongolia, we don't have this kind of stuffs. Again, from 1960, 1981, Ministry of Trade, Commerce and Preparation has established, and it is responsible for Mongolian foreign trade. And then from 1987 to 1990, Ministry of International Economic Relations were they responsible for Mongolian foreign trade. And after 1990, Mongolia has transformed as a transition from the socialist country to free country. So from 1992 until today, Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for Mongolian foreign trade. Means that it is not the ministry should be focused on, because it's how can we say, non-professional people are working in the foreign affairs. This is the Mongolian foreign affairs structure. So we see there is a diplomatic event department is responsible department of the foreign trade and economy. There is only 14 people works in this department. Only 14 people are just, responsible for this very big Mongolian policy. In my opinion, it's not enough. We needed to be a very big supporters, need to adopt and fulfill this policy to reach to support exporting products, which is a none other than the export raw materials, which is really sad. Okay, second, access to training. According to Asian Development Bank of Mongolia, Mongolian most small and medium enterprises don't know proper understanding of even regular access of the bank service, which is really sad because Mongolia has only 3 million people. 2 million people are reside in our capital city, Ulaanbaatar, and other 1 million people are residing other parts of the Mongolia. And Mongolia is a very huge land. So to travel between one city to another city, you have to travel more than 100 kilometers. So that's why it's really hard to communicate each other. And that's why some rural area people don't know how to use access bank services. They don't understand. They have very lack of financial education. Access to bank finance. Again, for Mongolian banking services, as I mentioned earlier, Mongolian bank products are very small and very limited. So that's why with the export credit agency gives an opportunity to bank diverse their products and gives them more finance to finance their products. For example, Mongolian financial market structure, it looks like this way. Banks are most biggest player of Mongolian financial market. And yet they are not offering any related export related products. For example, short-term insurance, no one gives. And medium long-term export credit, only one bank has offered. Fixed rate financing, no one. Foreign exchange fluctuation, no banks. Direct lending, no banks. And investment insurance, no banks. Bond support, no banks. Every export credit agency backed loans or conditional powerful products are not offered by any Mongolian private banking industry. So establishing export credit agency can be solved Mongolia in this kind of situation. And again, protection against risks. We have mentioned a lot of earlier about the risks, but Mongolia has a very big risk of the dependency of the raw material industry. We are selling only our raw materials. We don't manufacture. We don't do anything. We just explore it, we sell it. We needed to be transition from this raw material to other prices. For example, when commodity price index goes down, Mongolian industry goes same. So we see the real GDP of Mongolia and commodity price index. We see very similar pattern here. These two graphs means that Mongolia needs to be elevate this kind of risks. Okay, I think I should finish my lecture here because now it's 12:30, so I have to finish it here. So there is some best practices of the export credit agencies. There were 3 export credit agencies I have mentioned in this lecture. I wanted to, but there was a very small amount of time, so I just wanted to say those best practice according to my analysis. First, Korean export credit agencies, ecturer and Exim Bank of the Korea, because they have biggest supporter of the exporter of their country, which really needs for Mongolia. And second, Austrian Export Credit Agency, because Austrian Credit Agency is a private export credit agency, works as a private export credit agency for their governmental guides. And third one is a Kazakhstan Export Credit Agency, Kazakh Export, because Kazakhstan is very similar to the Mongolian economic situation, because from 1990, Kazakhstan become liberal country, or let's say perfect competitive economic. Before that, Kazakhstan were also Soviet Union bloc country. So we have a similar situation. And also Kazakhstan also sells their raw materials or resources to the other countries. But they have Kazakhstan export. With the Kazakhstan export, they have successfully shifted these dependencies to the other levels. So I have mentioned these 3 export credit agencies can be a very good example for Mongolia. So thank you for your attention. I'm finishing my lecture of export credit agency. Is there any question regarding on my this lecture?
For first question, we have in room chat. Yeah, this
Okay.
is okay. This is from YouTube audience. First question: why it needs crediting agency important to be used in import export?
Okay.
I will chat in.
Okay.
In room chat. Yeah, just
Let's see. Second, please.
Just 2 questions only.
Okay. Why needs crediting agencies important to be used in import and export? Oh, okay. First of all, it is really helpful to import companies. Okay, I wanted to show you the first part of my lecture here. Exporter, importer have their own interests, right? Export wanted to sell their goods and services, and when they are give their goods and services, they wanted their payment, while importer wanted to pay at least when the goods and services come to their country. Means that there is a lag. Goods and services can be shipping from exporter country to importer country. There could be some days lag. So with export credit loans or guarantees, insurance, it can be fill these kind of gaps first of all. So with the export credit agency, insurance exporter could understand, okay, importer gonna give me money if they are become a default. Export credit agency gonna pay me, or exporter can be get loans from the export credit agency to fill this lag. Is that okay? Do you understand me?
Yes,
Am
I
I
get it. Your answer.
okay?
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Now, second question: which party takes role in a letter of credit? Which party takes a role in a letter of credit? Where is it? Credit of letter. Okay, so I think someone who asked a question from this picture, I guess. So with the buyer credit, there will be a lot of more complex steps here, and export needs to be from the buyer credit, importer needs to be right. Oh, sorry. Importer needs to be right letter of the credits. Oh, sorry. Okay. And from the buyer credit, the export credit agency can be gives exporter and importer the loan, and also guarantees and insurance by using via banks of their countries, bank or the country A's bank or country B's bank. So am I made it clear? Because credit letter of credit writer will be importer. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can get your answer. I think we don't
Okay.
have no more question again.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for Miss Dulguun Altangerel for joining in this session. Yvonne, yeah,
Okay.
your presentation is amazing and wonderful. I hope for our audience can get a new knowledge. Yeah, thank you
Okay.
for Miss Dulguun. We take a picture for documentation.
Okay.
Yeah, just a moment, please. Yeah, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for Miss
Thank
Dulguun.
you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope we
Bye.
can meet again in other event. Thank you so much. Goodbye. See you soon. I hope you are doing well. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.